Hello, my name is Jennifer Kumpion, and I chose phenylketonuria for my capstone project. And the reason that I chose this is because I am actually a carrier for PKU. All right. So, what is phenylketonuria? PKU is a genetic metabolic disorder that basically affects how an individual metabolizes the amino acid phenylalanine. Normally, we would convert phenylalanine into tyrosine, but individuals with this genetic disorder are not able to make that conversion. We know the mutation associated with PKU is the PAH gene, which stands for phenylalanine hydroxylase. And this enzyme provides the instructions in order to convert phenylalanine into tyrosine. And when we do not have a working enzyme, as in PKU, phenylalanine actually builds up in the brain where it's toxic and can cause certain effects such as intellectual disability, seizures, developmental delays, and behavioral problems. So what is the genetic basis of PKU? We know that PKU is caused by a mutation in phenylalanine hydroxylase, or PAH. PAH gene is located on chromosome 12. It is an autosomal recessive disorder, and an individual must inherit two different mutated PAH alleles, one from each parent. And so this means that each parent must have been a carrier in order for a child to develop the disease. A child with both parents who are carriers has a 25% chance of inheriting the disease and a 50% chance of becoming a carrier themselves. Carriers, we know, have one normal gene and then one mutated PAH gene. Carriers are largely asymptomatic. So what are the types of PAH mutations? Well, through research, we know there are over 500 different mutations that so far have been identified. And these include missense mutations, nonsense mutations, splice site mutations, and deletions or insertions. And all of these can all result in PKU. The severity of PKU differs from what we call mild to severe, with severe meaning that the enzyme activity is very low. In mild cases, there is some level of enzyme activity happening, which is resulting in some conversion of phenylalanine into tyrosine. So what symptoms would we look for? So the buildup of phenylalanine in the brain results in intellectual disability, developmental delays, seizures, behavioral problems, and microcephaly, or small brain size. Some physical signs of PKU sometimes are a musty odor in the breath or skin, or sometimes in urine. And this is a result of phenylacetate buildup within the urine, causes this type of smell. Individuals with PKU almost always have fair skin and light hair, and sometimes blue eyes. And this is a result of the low tyrosine levels results in a decrease in melanin production. And so therefore, less melanin production, the fairer and lighter the skin. Sometimes individuals with PKU also have eczema or other skin rashes, and almost always is their growth retardation. So how do we screen and diagnose PKU? So we screen every single newborn within the United States for PKU. Blood is collected via a heel prick, and added to blotted filter paper. And basically, in the lab analysis, we're looking at what level of phenylalanine is in the blood. And so a very high level of phenylalanine suggests the diagnosis of PKU. We can also directly test for mutations in the PAH gene and to see if someone is a carrier, or actually if they have two different alleles, then that would be pathogenic for the disease. Quantitative plasma phenylalanine test measures the exact amount of phenylalanine in the blood, and again, high level of phenylalanine suggests PKU because phenylalanine normally would convert into tyrosine. Signs: high phenylalanine to tyrosine ratio, of course, high phenylalanine in the blood, and then, of course, clinical observations such as developmental delays, seizures, growth retardation, possibly light hair and skin, and then that musty odor in the urine or on the breath. So what is the treatment for PKU? Historically, the only treatment for PKU would have been a low phenylalanine diet. And so we know that phenylalanine is primarily in high protein food items. And so an individual would need to restrict foods that are high in protein, such as meat, fish, eggs, nuts, soy, dairy, beans, and also artificial sweeteners that contain phenylalanine. So aspartame is a common one that is used in food products that these individuals would need to limit. And this would need to start at time of diagnosis, which almost always is in the newborn state. For kids, especially in infants, there are phenylalanine-free medical formulas that can be fed to the infants to prevent the buildup of phenylalanine in the brain, which results in the symptoms. Very recently, or relatively recently, there have been a couple medications that have come about. One is called Kuvan. It's basically a synthetic form of BH4. BH4 is a cofactor for the PAH enzyme, and so by providing this medication, those with mild cases of PKU can convert a little bit better in terms of phenylalanine to tyrosine, but this medication is not very effective for those with the severe form of the disease. Another medication called Palynziq is an enzyme therapy that actually breaks down the phenylalanine in the blood. And this particular medication therapy is used for individuals with the severe, or what we call like the classic form of PKU. And it's used in addition to diet therapy. So interesting facts. PKU is actually one of the first genetic diseases ever understood biochemically. And it was discovered in 1934 by Norwegian Dr. Ashborn Falling. And so he had two children that he noticed kind of this musty smell on, tested their urine and identified phenylpyruvic acid in their urine. And this discovery helped to start what we now know as the field of inborn errors in metabolism and medical genetics. This is essentially why, or what spurred the movement to screen for certain type of inborn errors in metabolism at birth in newborns to prevent any type of damage that could result in an individual that might have PKU that might need to be on a special diet. PKU was actually the first disease that was screened in the United States in newborns, and this began in 1960s, and now newborns, especially those born in a hospital setting, are going to be screened via heel prick at birth. One interesting thing about PKU is the frequency varies around the world. And so, for example, in the US and Europe, the frequency of PKU is about 1 in every 10,000 to 15,000 individuals. But we find a much lower frequency in the Middle East and in Turkey, where the frequency is only 1 in 2,600. Japan and Finland, we see a significantly increased incidence of PKU, and so the frequency there is 1 in 100,000. And these are just a couple of my references. Thank you so much.